Hi guys, my name is Saleha Tirmizi and I am a communication designer. And today I'm gonna get right into it. We're gonna talk about how to get a raise and how to negotiate your salaries or any work that you have. So before we start, how many of you guys are like professionally working right now? Okay. So I'm glad you guys raised your hands already, but raise your hand if you think that you do a lot of work but don't get paid enough for it. Okay. Raise your hand if you don't feel like your bosses or clients recognize your efforts. Okay. Raise your hands if you find it difficult to ask for a raise. All right, we sort of have a problem here, right? Um, okay, so to be honest, I've been there, and sometimes I'm still there because I started very recently. But to get back to like when I started, my first salary or first job was for 15,000 rupees. That's where I started. And for 6 months, I stayed at that job, like I stayed at that salary and I was working really hard. And until I decided to leave, that was around like 25K. And I had no backing. I did not know what I was going to do. I was like, okay, I'm not going to work for 25K anymore and I'm just going to leave. Like, they don't deserve me. I worked really hard. Um, and then I had no plan. So what I did, as anyone else would do, not make my resume, I just made a vision board instead. So in my vision board, it's basically like a notebook. You just put whatever you want in it. And I wrote a big number, like a really big number on it as my salary. And I was like, this is what I deserve. This is going to be my salary, and this is all the money that I'm going to get, right? And then 3 days, and after that, I was like, okay, how do I get the salary? So I like set up my LinkedIn or whatever. And 3 days later, a person called me and she was like, hey, we need a graphic designer. Are you willing to work with us? And I was like, hell yeah, like I don't have a job right now. I'll work for you. And she's like, okay, like we need to know what your expected salary like range is. Like, what's your expectation? I already had that number on that vision board, so I just said it. And she said, yeah, okay. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like the best negotiator ever. Like, did I just like get the number I wanted? Like, what? This is like 3 times the money that I was getting. But like, yeah, I was like, okay, cool, that's great. Later, when I started working there, I found out that their budget was much higher than what I said. So they got a great deal out of me, and I took an L there. But the moral of the story is you'd be surprised to know how many times putting a number on the table can become the number in your bank account. So you would think that the number in your head is really big, but you don't know where your clients are coming from. You don't know what their numbers are. So if you think it's like a lot, just go for it, right? But before you can even figure out that number, I feel like there's a stage that comes with it. Has anyone watched Perks of Being a Wallflower? So, there's a line in that movie is we accept the love that we think we deserve. And I think with compensation is the same thing. So we accept the money we think we deserve. But how do I know how much money I deserve, right? Like, how do I figure that out? So there is a step one for that. Before you go to your employers or clients and go like, hey, listen, I need like 600K per month, do some preparation for that before that, right? So how do you know if you should get a raise or not, or like what the right number is, right? The first step is to gather data, which is very simple. सबसे आसान चीज़ ये है, you just go and ask your peers and how much other people are making. So it's an easier idea to get an idea. Like, okay, that's a good number. I can work with that. But what worked for me is when I was working at my last job, I got 2 raises in 8 months. So I got 2 promotions in 8 months. And how I did that was I was very like quiet about it, but I used to like put all of my accomplishments. Like every time I did a task, I would send it to my manager, and I would get it on paper. Like I would get it on email that he's like, "You did a great job. Like this is amazing. Thank you so much." I would get it on paper every time. Like I would have emails and messages, and then I would like put them in a folder. And when I was like, okay, like I need some extra cash. I feel like I need to buy a new phone or something. I would go to my manager, I'd be like, listen, like I would take that folder and I'd be like, guys, look at all the work that I've done. And I love this company. And I want to make sure that we keep doing this, right? I'll keep doing more for you, but I think like it's time we have a conversation about, negotiating this. So because I had all those things written down, were things that my manager said, not what I said, it solidified my case study, right? Because I even got an affirmation that, okay, I've done all this work there is all of this feedback that I've gotten, I can ask for a certain amount of raise or money. And then that would just make for him to like debate that a little harder because he said that I did a great job. So what he's gonna say, like, oh, I never said that. It's on paper. What are you saying? And then the second thing I would also recommend is to always talk about the things that are not in your job description, but not in a way that, but that's not part of my job. It could be just like, oh, I learned this new skill because like we can do this or that. So just gather all that information and put it in one place, right? And then shift your mindset. That's the struggle we all have because I think anytime you think of a big number, you're like, okay, I don't think I can ask for that. That's too much. So if you really think about it, like on a broader perspective, there are 8.1 billion people in the world. Do you really think someone's not going to give you the money that you deserve? So it really starts there. And if you have all that data from the first step, you'll figure out like, you can ask for that money. And then prioritize your goals. Figure out, is it like the money that you need? Is it like you want to move up in your corporate ladder? Or what is it that you really need? Because if you are not sure because your manager is like, okay, what do you want to do? Then you need to have an answer for that. That's why you need to be prepared, right? And then believing in yourself. Because I know this is so cliche, but guys, the moment you become like delusional, that's when things will work out for you. I have been delusional for the past 1 year, and I'm talking to you guys right now, and you guys are listening to me, right? So just believe in yourself, really, and that's how things happen for you. Because if you don't believe in yourself, someone else is not going to listen to you either, right? Second thing is communication. And everyone says, oh, like, मैं तो बता रहा हूँ कि भाई मुझसे काम नहीं हो रहा है. But communication is actually not about you, it's also about them. Because you want to make sure that you're not conveying information, but you are making sure that you're understanding first. So you gotta listen, and then you're also being understood. Because I think a lot of times when you talk about communication, it's always like one person is just waiting to talk back, right? But if you sound like this, no one's gonna listen to you. So this is not effective communication. So if you go like, I deserve a raise, I need more money, I have this, chances are your manager is not listening to you, or your client if you guys are freelancing. So the first step is to actually listen. And in order to communicate and negotiate, the best thing is to understand, jisse baat kar rahe ho, whoever you're talking to, what is the state of mind that they're in. So ask what their problems are and how you can solve that problem. Because the more you ask them, they would also be like, okay, this person is like there for me, they understand it. And also it will help you figure out and navigate where you want to grow really, right? And then clarify your doubts. Just because your manager was like, can you do this one thing? Or your client is like, can you make it look prettier? Ask them, what does that mean? Like, do you want to do this? Like, get some clarity on that, because right off the bat, you're not going to get it. And it's okay. There's no shame in not understanding. That's why you need to clarify your doubts and just ask questions, right? And then comes the communication part. So the best thing to do when you're communicating is also figuring out that what value you're bringing, which we did in step 1. So if you know that you are going to make sure that the designs are delivered on time and the quality is not going to be down, or whatever the value it is that you bring, maybe it's your strategy, maybe it's your time management skills, maybe it could be anything. Link it to their goals and how does my strength help them. So just be like, if we do this, this is where we can get, right? So you're communicating your idea to make sure that they're listening. So you need to make sure it's not about you, it's about them as well, right? And be very specific on what it is that you're talking about. Because a lot of times as managers or clients, we don't have a lot of time. And I'm sure like you guys are really nervous about those meetings as well. So it's the best thing you can really do is just have a conversation and be like, this is exactly what I need. Because then you are gonna start working on solving a problem. But if you don't know what the problem statement is, then you don't know if you're gonna be successful or not when you have a result in the end, right? So just be very specific. And also, guys, be flexible. I think when anyone's negotiating, it's very like, I need to win this. But negotiation is just making sure that you can come to an agreement, right? That both of you agree on the next decision, and if it's a pay raise or if it's other benefits, you guys can be like, okay, this is what works for me, and okay, I can take a few steps back here, and then you can take a few steps forward here, and that's going to work out for you, right? So just be flexible when you're communicating, because the more rigid you're going to sound, it's going to dilute the conversation, it's going to turn into an argument, and the whole point of it just fades away. Step 3 is bargain. And I think this is a struggle that we know in this economy, that sometimes the clients are broke as well, right? Or your like company is not making a lot of money, because that's the economy of Pakistan, unfortunately. So you need to understand that sometimes my clients are broke as well. So then you have to ask yourself, do I want to pursue this relationship? Like, if they cannot fulfill my needs, is it fair for me to ask for that? Not really, right? Like, you know that they can do that. So then you just ask yourself, do you want to pursue this partnership? If it's a no, then you know the presentation just ends here. But if it's a yes, then consider other monetary benefits. You know, there are other things that you guys can negotiate with your raise. Because think about like what you need money for, right? Sometimes, for me, a lot of times it was like half of my money was going to commute. So then I had a conversation with my team about like, can you guys figure something out for me? So then if they can't give me a raise, they can give a company-wide policy where everyone can get a commute situation solved for them, right? It could be additional vacation days, so maybe you don't have to work that much because they can afford you per hour, or it could be anything like that. It could also be training and development programs. So if you guys want to get into how to be a better designer or like some courses, maybe your company or clients can help you fund that, right? You're not asking for more money, but you're getting some sort of benefit, right? That you would be investing your money in anyway. And then, you know, if you're working in an office, you can always ask for like a foosball table or a vending machine if that's what makes you happy. But, you know, just figure out what works for you in other aspects apart from money that you can still negotiate with them. But if it isn't, then, you know, you can just leave the company, right? And then agreement. This is so important. A lot of times I have the best meetings with my clients and they're like, we love the work, we are okay with the pricing. And then when I send out the proposal, the conversation changes again. So make sure whenever you are communicating your pricing, if it's with your manager, if it's with your client, that you document that stuff. And this goes back to the first step that I talked about, was make sure that you document everything. But trust me, it will save you and them some time. Because a lot of times your managers will be like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Sounds great. Because they have like 7 other things on their mind. So I don't even blame them. But as it could be your like responsibility as well to make sure that you have that shit on paper. So then if they go like, hey, I never said that, then you're like, it's right here. What do you mean? It's right there. Yeah. So now we kind of figured out all the do's of, you know, negotiating and getting that raise. But there are some don'ts that all of us do. I did all of these things as well. That's why I have them written down, because I did some shadow working and I was like, this is why my client did not agree to me negotiating with him. So this is not getting a raise bingo. So the first one is threatening to leave. So if you tell your client or company manager, anybody, that I'm leaving and like I'm not getting paid enough, whatever, there's not a conversation there. You're just having an argument, right? So if you say that, you're just looking like someone who's going to give up and who's not ready to change or doesn't want to adapt or move forward. It just makes you look like a loser, not gonna lie. Unless it's really toxic, then you should leave. But if that's like your tactic to get more money, please don't do that. It makes you look really bad. Just think about it from their perspective, right? If you don't bring value. So I know that that's a little harsh, but a lot of times, do the first step and figure out that, am I really bringing some value? Like, what am I doing? Do I deserve that raise? That's why that step is super crucial. So if you don't bring value, your managers probably, to the leaving you, will be like, okay, you can leave, bye. It was great having you on the team. Slow quitting. This is something similar to like threatening to leave, but it's even lazier, where you don't even tell them that you're quitting, but you're mentally not working. So you don't do your work on time, you don't deliver things on time, you're being lazy. It's not gonna help you get more money. Trust me. Like, people are gonna be like, you are not like serious about this. You don't care. And if you come off as someone who doesn't care about other people, then yeah, you're not gonna get what you want. So it's not about you. It's about them, right? Focus solely on the time served. A lot of times we're like, hey, like I was your first like employee, or you were my first client and we've worked together for 5 years. Like, I need, no. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Sometimes, like, yeah, it's a good thing. Like, your relationship matters. But how are you cultivating it? Is all those 5 years coming down to, I'm going to leave if you don't give me this money? Like, we worked together for so long. Like, just think about that. That doesn't sound so good, right? Discussing your financial struggles. I know this one's a hard one to swallow. Like, it's like a hard pill to swallow. But it could help you getting a raise once. But if you're always going to talk about your financial struggles, your boss is just going to be like, maybe we're not the right fit for you. So you need to like just understand that you need to stop sounding like it's like, well, me, and I know this is very cliche, but it should be we. Yeah. Demand a raise without justification, which is similar to don't bringing value, and then neglecting professional development. If you become very complacent with your skills as a person and you're like, I'm gonna stick to content writing, I'm gonna stick to just making this like 5 posts a week, chances are your manager is gonna see you as a tool worker and someone who's gonna get the work done, sure. But if you don't develop yourself, you're hurting yourself because maybe the company's gonna have, maybe the economy is gonna have a bad time, the company's gonna have a hard time, they're gonna have layoffs. So will they think about retaining you? Are you really helping them? So just figure out how can I professionally develop myself more, and that's definitely gonna get you that raise, right? And ignoring feedback. A lot of times if you go to your manager, you're like, I'm not getting paid enough, or your client, that, hey man, I'm not getting paid enough. They're gonna tell you, well, your work is shit. They're gonna start saying really harsh things to you as well. So just know that yaar meri goat phasi hui hai there. This is like, I need to get my stuff done. I need to get this conversation moving forward. So just listen to it. And to be honest, tali do haath se bachti hai, and that just means that their feedback, even though it might not be 100% right, but at least 20% of it might be. So just take it with a grain of salt, hear it back, and develop yourself further. And then, yeah, if you don't believe in yourself, then it's not going to happen for you, right? So yeah, negotiation is about winning, about winning the argument, but about reaching an agreement. So it's not fighting. That's also why all of us are very nervous getting into a negotiation, because all of us are always like, oh my God, like it's going to become an argument. Don't make it into an argument. Have a conversation. Of course, they're going to listen to you. And if you're valuable to them, then best believe they'll do everything to retain you, right? Yeah, so raise your hand if you feel more confident asking for that raise. I did a decent job. So yeah, that was me, Saleha Tirmizi. I am the founder of Mizi. And yeah, follow me on Instagram. And I hope I helped you guys. Does anyone have any questions?
So from the perspective of somebody that's hiring, like I know that you have your own setup and so do I. If your new hire was to negotiate a higher salary, you agree, they come in, but then the quality of their work is shit. What do you do then? They've already negotiated that higher salary with all of your point.
Then start giving them feedback and just communicate with them. What I used to do is have a 3-strike rule. That goes with everything in my life, like some like relationships, friendships. Strike 3 and you're out. So communicate with them that, listen, this is not the quality of work we decided to work on. It's not up to the standards that I was expecting. Make sure you have this conversation while you're hiring, but of course, like now if that's a problem that you're having, talk about it, and then give them 3 strikes. Strike 3, they're out. So you've communicated your part as well, because I think with startups and smaller scale companies, especially like myself, it's very hard to give like 300K, even sometimes 120K when I'm starting off so fresh, right? So I'm like, okay, get people on board who maybe understand your vision as well, who believe in the larger purpose of what you're doing. That might help, but just communicate with them that strike 3 you're out. Because like I feel like a lot of times as employers, we are like, I don't want to get rid of their like bread and butter. But like Allah Ta'ala is the one responsible for that. He's going to make sure everyone gets everything. And maybe they need that push to get forward in their career. So if you drop them, maybe that'll give them that push to work harder and be better. Just talk to them.
All right, this is getting into a bit of employment rather than actually negotiation. But what are the biggest, as for you, when you're hiring someone, hiring a creative, what is the biggest red flags for you? Okay, oh, okay, this is not the right person for me.
Yeah, so for me, a lot of it comes down to how the conversation starts. If they don't ask a lot of questions to me personally, that's a red flag. Because you don't have questions, come on. And I keep asking them because I don't like interviews where, like, what's your name, what's your whatever. It's more like a conversation because I'm trying to get to know you. Because you are going to be part of the team. So I need to make sure that we work well together. So if you don't ask a lot of questions, or you just go like, okay, how much am I going to get paid? Or, okay, is it like 5 days a week or 7 days a week? I get those are questions as well, but my conversations are very different. So that's a little bit of a red flag where I'm like, okay, so it's not the right fit for me. But just like for everyone in general, whenever you go to an interview, research the employers, and I'm sure you're gonna have questions when you go over their website or what they're like. Have some questions because the more interested you sound, it's more willing that they will get you that job.
I like the part that you have given for people like, let's say, us when we are going to negotiate, right? But can you shed some light? I mean, I've been lucky enough not to have those kind of managers. Alhamdulillah, पिछले 6 साल में बहुत अच्छे लोग मिल गए मुझे.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, but there are some sort of people for no reason they have a bone of contention with people they are managing, right? So if you go in for a raise negotiation or whatever, कि भाई मैंने पिछले 6 महीनों में 5 प्रोजेक्ट्स संभाले हैं, for example, right? And I feel like कि मेरी जो compensation है, let's say 2 लाख है, I feel like I should be getting 250. But they will always find a way to break that thing, those managers, right? They're not going to give it to you, whatever the case.
So you know that going into that conversation is not going to happen?
No, what I'm saying is for those people who have now known कि भाई ये managers जो है ना ये बड़ा. So what's the point that you can share for the people जिनको नहीं मिल रहा?
Yeah, so for me, like, first of all, I would just say, do you want to pursue that forward? Like, because that could be something difficult. But a lot of times, managers like that as well, who are like, khunnas nikal rahe hote hain. I don't know if you know what that means, right? Tell them, call them out that, hey, I know you're doing this. It's not okay. I don't think this is right. Like, just communicate it, have a conversation. But if not, this is a very petty, like, response way. But it works in negotiation. It's just repeat what they're saying. So if they're like, तुम ऑफिस टाइम पे नहीं आते, just be like मैं ऑफिस टाइम पे नहीं आता. Then he's gonna reword, then he's gonna realize what he's saying, and then he'll be like, no, like, so just catch them a little off guard. But the best thing is just to like call them out, and if they're being a little harsh, then start soft, but then build it up as well. But just be like, okay, this is like a problem that I'm having and it's not working out. But yeah, good luck with your manager if he's like that.
My question was that, first of all, crazy presentation, really loved it. And question is that if you're working for a particular brand, especially in Pakistan, you know, the kind of corporate environment we get is 80% toxic and 20% productive. So did you ever feel that if you are going to your superiors for the raise talk or agreement or whatever you want to call it, there comes a time that they just don't want to hear it? You know, they start running it off like a wild loop.
Yeah,
So
that happens.
either you feel like yeah, if I am making a mistake, at some point you feel like that, because I've been through that point in my life. So it, like, I'm not saying like from a negative
Right, so you're
perspective,
saying you
it's-
feel like...
yeah, so did you feel like you know, it's the, because sometimes it's also about the time you are talking matters. Okay, what phase you are moving in that perspective. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, so that's the first step as well. You know, when I said preparation, that's when you kind of sit and figure out that should I get that raise? Is it the right time? What am I bringing value into? Because sometimes, kabhi hum bhi problem hota hai, right? Where you might, if they're not listening to you after 7 times, then I think there's another problem there. So do some shadow working and also just ask your managers, not about money, but just like, hey, how can I be better? That's probably going to help you get a better feedback. Then you know what the next step is from that. All right. Thank you so much for coming and listening to my talk, guys. I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys make more money because there's a lot of money in the world.